Hello and welcome to the Unqualified Minds Leadership Training. Today, we will be looking at Platoon Leading. I'm Fanosi and I will be explaining the art of Platoon Leading. Today, we're going to go over these topics: compiling information, giving a briefing, ground commanding, extended map planning, what types of orders there are, how to use them, some additional leading tips, and we end off today by explaining how to ask for a sitrep on an operation-wide scale. This will be a lot of information. Use the chapters in the video tab to go back to a topic if you want to have a second look or to get a quick overview of this video. Before we begin, let's clear up some confusion. The term platoon leader is occasionally synonymous with ground commander within the Unqualified Minds unit, or also put simply as commander. This is due to its involvement in extensive mission planning and its role in guiding the entirety of the operation and their player elements towards success. Also, the skill set acquired from platoon leadership can be applied by a squad leader as well, who may assume the role of commander for smaller operations. Therefore, these terms and names can be used interchangeably. Just like we explained in the last video, the first thing that happens as a leader when you join an operation is getting a briefing from the mission maker together with your fellow leaders. You will receive information about what the intent of the player experience is and how the mission maker and leadership together will realize this idea. This part of the operation is still the most important for a leader as you get to know your fellow leaders and the mission maker's intent. You will also know how many different squads and supporting elements you will have at your disposal. Together with this information, you can start setting up the layout of the squads and supporting elements. The leadership layout for a platoon will look something like this. You are here. You lead the entire platoon and will issue all the orders based on the mission maker's intent and objectives assigned. A platoon structure may have 2 to 4 squads, plus additional vehicles or small artillery teams attached to it. This can be a lot to manage, and this is why we are here to explain how to do it. Firstly, it's important to take in all the information you can expect to get during the pre-briefing like we discussed in the squad leading video in the briefing chapter. After you've collected all this information, you will need to start planning for the objectives assigned by the mission maker. Ground commanding. As the ground commanding element, you gather and note all important information on the map. Try and do this before the player briefing starts. In essence, you as the ground commanding element have to ensure that everything is well organized from the start. Everyone should know where to go, who their leaders are, and what they're doing. The best way to do this is via extended map planning. Extended map planning. Mark down the objectives and think about how heavily fortified these objectives are, and what it takes to seize the objective. You will also want to mark down enemy types we can expect from that operation. Enemy types can scale from infantry to motorized, then mechanized, moving up to armor, and lastly up to rotary or fixed wing. Start by marking your starting point and destination. Then, mark where the enemy is based on the information you've been given during the briefing. Anything that's useful. It's better to mark it on the map than forget later. If provided CAS or artillery for the operation, mark down areas where air assets cannot enter an area due to anti-air presence, or mark down an area for artillery to make sure they don't hit potential civilians in that area. Set boundaries for your support elements. Now, start marking down the roles and support elements of the attending players on an empty space on the map. From here, you can assign specific teams based on the role selection for squad/teams. For example, anti-tank, rifleman, heavy machine gunner with an auto rifleman combo, medics, and so forth. For clarification, you can assign call signs to squads and supporting elements and mark them down on the map as well. At this point, it would also be nice to add your corresponding radio channel with it to ensure smooth radio communication. We encourage you to use the tools and knowledge we taught in the squad leader video to make your battle plan, but as a platoon leader, you might want to add one more important part: phase lines. These are simple straight lines that separate the game's map into pieces. We call them phases. These phase lines can be used to indicate progress and order in which to complete the operation phase by phase. For example, an infantry force can hold at a phase line before proceeding to the next phase. We call this staging. This means their armor support can catch up to the phase line and regroup with them before they all move on to the next phase, which for example could be assaulting a town. Staging before any engagement is a good thing to do to ensure that the operation runs smoothly and everyone involved has a clear idea of what's going on. Giving briefing. You would give a big briefing to the platoon, or generally speaking for us, that means all forces involved in the entire operation. This briefing must include a few things in the order explained below. Note that most of this information must be given by the mission maker to you. If this is not the case, we recommend asking for any missing pieces of information. Alright, let's break down the operation and battle plan step by step. We want to ensure everyone understands it without getting lost in lengthy briefings. So let's keep it clear and concise, starting with leadership and support. First things first, let's talk about how leadership is structured for this operation. You might also get some extra assets like vehicles and artillery teams. Don't forget to mention those. Communication is crucial. You'll need to discuss the radio communication setup, understand the special roles like radioman and JTAG, and make sure everyone has a grasp on the radio network and how it will function. Think of setting up channels for specific squads and making sure that the long-range net doesn't get cluttered. Now, for the big picture, what's the mission about? You want to try and create a general mission overview. You can talk about who we're playing as, who the enemy is, what map we're on, and what the objectives are for today. Speaking of objectives, there are usually several of them. You'll explain each one of them, including enemy identification, fortifications, and the types of opposition you might encounter, from infantry to heavy armor and air assets. Moving on, let's talk about resupply and reinsertion. The mission maker or player base will provide the details on how you'll get what you need and how you'll get back into the action. Lastly, any special mission parameters like an infection system should be mentioned. Now that everyone's on the same page, let's dive into your own battle plan. You'll lay it out from start to finish. For players, it's important to know that they are free to ask questions and provide feedback as you explain the battle plan. But more importantly, they should be paying attention during the briefing. We want to ensure everyone understands this plan, so let's try to keep it concise and engaging. Now that everyone knows what the plan is, you can move out to complete these objectives. But during the operation, you will need to give orders. There are two ways you can give orders as a platoon leader: direct orders and simple orders. Let's go over these types of orders and what they mean. Direct orders are straightforward commands to individual team members or units. They are essential for basic coordination and include instructions like move to a specific location, engage a specific target, provide covering fire, hold position. These orders are concise and should be clear and easy to understand. Moving on, simple orders. Simple orders, on the other hand, are orders you give to an entire squad, vehicle element, or support team, like artillery, or even a recon fire team on top of a hill. And any of these instructions could look like this: seize that village, lay mines on that road, Alpha Squad, provide support for Bravo Squad so they can move up, Raven 1-1, we spotted some armored vehicles near Bravo Squad, provide close air support. These orders should be broad and leave plenty of room for that element to figure out how they want to tackle this obstacle in their own way. There's also a difference between giving assault, defense, and safety orders. So let's go over those real quick. Assault orders are used when you want your platoon to advance on the enemy. Different assault types can include flanking and squad bounding, for example. Flanking means instructing your squad to move around the enemy's flank to attack from the side or rear. This can surprise and disorient the enemy. Squad bounding means dividing your squad into two elements, one providing covering fire while the other advances, and then they can switch roles. This allows for a controlled advance under fire. When giving assault orders, specify the direction of the attack, the formation to maintain, and any additional details like the use of smoke grenades or high explosive grenades. Moving on to defense. Defense orders are used when you need to hold a position or defend against an enemy assault. Different defense types include securing and building fortifications. Securing means assigning sectors of fire and ordering elements to maintain observation and be ready to engage any threats from the designated direction. If you don't have a designated direction the enemy is attacking from, be sure to pull 360 security. Building fortifications means instructing your platoon to construct defensive structures like sandbags, barriers, or trenches to fortify their position. When giving defense orders, ensure that your elements understand their sectors, the need for vigilance, and any specific fortifications they should be building. Lastly, hailing over the radio for safety orders is crucial to the survival of the entire platoon. There are two very important safety orders you can issue via radio. These include check fire and cease fire. Use check fire when you want all the elements to immediately stop firing. This is important to avoid friendly fire incidents or when you need to assess the situation again. Ceasefire as an order to stop all firing on hostilities temporarily. This is typically used when there is a need to de-escalate the situation, such as after a firefight or during negotiations. When giving these orders, emphasize the need for discipline and immediate compliance to prevent accidents or misunderstandings. Remember that clear and concise communication is key in ArmA 3. Just as it is in a real-life military operation. Ensure that your orders are given in a timely manner, use appropriate radio channels and markers on the map to enhance coordination and minimize confusion among your platoon members. Pre-Firefight and Post-Sitrep. This is also something we have already covered, but we want you to shift your perspective even more now. Ask your different elements for a sit rep after a fight. This should include the Post-Sitrep checklist. You should then know if you need to arrange for resupply or vehicle-specific things like vehicle repairs or ammunition. Make sure all your elements are all ready to go before and after each engagement. Thank you for watching the Unqualified Minds leadership training. You completed all the leadership training videos all the way up to Platoon Leading. These videos are a good booster to get your leading career on the road, but experience and learning from your mistakes are key to mastering the art of leading in ArmA Free. Remember your training, plan ahead of time, and take care of the player base attending the operation. Don't forget to ensure people are having a fun time, as it is step number 1 in making sure your plan will succeed. Now go out there and lead your troops.